Hello, welcome back to my Python tutorials. In this episode, we are going to put in some collisions for our platformer that we've been making for ages now. First of all, I'll show you what we've got so far. Literally what happens is the block just falls down, and since we don't have any collision detection, it falls through the blocks at the bottom. So today, we're just going to stop that from happening just by putting in some basic collisions. First of all, I would like to just apologize for not having made any videos in the past 3 months. It's been ridiculous, but hopefully I'll get back to making videos more regularly now. So yeah, I thought I worked on this in my own time a little bit, and I thought I'd show you what we're going to be aiming for. So you're going to see it actually stops, and I did put in keyboard, but I'm afraid we're not going to be doing that this tutorial because we won't have time. But yeah, that's fine. So let's just close that and go back to this one. Also, since we are doing collision detection, I've already kind of made a tutorial on collision detection, which was I think it was tutorial 8 in this series. So you might want to watch that because I'm going to explain it in a lot more detail in that one. So I think I'm going to put an annotation somewhere on the screen so you can go to that video. But we're just going to be stealing this code from it because that's all we really need. So I will, in the description, I will put this file so you can have a look and get the code and stuff. But yeah, I'm just going to copy that at the moment. Then you want to go into your player class, and just after the initialize method, we can just put it in. Now, this is very important. Highlight all of that and press tab so it goes like that, so it doesn't, otherwise it won't work. And then also put in self at the top because all the methods have to do that in the class. And yeah, that's the method implemented. Now, I will go over that briefly. So we see here this method takes in all these variables. So we have x1, y1, width 1, height 1, x2, y2, width 2, height 2. And all these ones are for the first rectangle, and all these are for the second rectangle. What first, second? And so here we've got x2 plus width 2, so that's the top right, well, not the top, just the right edge of the second rectangle, and we see that if that's more than or equal to x1, and this is more than or equal to x2, which is like the left of the second rectangle, then that means that the left edge of the first rectangle is like within that. I hope I explained that all right. But yeah, I did explain this in quite a lot of detail in that previous video, so if you want to watch that, if you haven't already, I would recommend it. But and then that's practically the same just for the y direction. So this is the bottom of the second rectangle, this is the top of the first, and the top of the second. So we're basically testing if like the top of the first rectangle is like within the second rectangle. So, and yeah, just for both directions. And then all we do is these are all exactly the same, except it's just testing different areas of the first rectangle. So instead of x1, it's x1 plus width 1, which is instead of the left side of it, it's the right side, because we add on the width of it. So that goes from there to there. But we still do y1. My throat is already getting sore from talking so long. And then that again is like that. Instead, what's different is this bit. It's y1 plus height 1 instead of just y1. And yeah, so and if none of those return true, it just returns false. So yeah, we're going to use that to test if there's any collisions. So Now you want to be in your update method, and first of all we're going to create a new variable up here called falling, self.falling, and we're going to set that to true at the start because it is going to be falling at the start, because if you saw, it did start by going down. And then we're also going to make self.onGround, and that will be true when it's on the floor, but at the start it's not on the floor, so we set it to false. We might change that, don't know. So then in here we need some way to update the falling variable. So we do if self.falling, no, it's not self.falling, if self.velocity is less than 0. Now if you remember, if the rectangle is going down, the velocity is going to be less than 0. Yeah, I'm not really sure why I did it like that, I just did. If you see gravity, where's gravity, is minus 0.5, so, and what we do is we add gravity onto velocity, so if it's going down, velocity will start getting negative. So if velocity is less than 0, then we're going to set this falling variable to true. So yeah, that just handles all that updating and stuff. Now also we need to, well, the next thing we're going to do is just make a variable called, if I can type, collision equals false to start with, and also we're going to need a block. Why didn't that enter? Okay, block x and block y equals 0, 0. And that just basically makes two variables called block x and block y, and they're both 0. These three variables even is going to be for this loop we're about to make, which is going to be called for. What am I doing today? For block in block list. Now, block list we're actually going to import. So if you put block list at the top, and we're going to get that from the main script. So you see here where it says player update, and we've just got gravity at the moment, but now we've put in this other variable, we need gravity and block list. So put a comma and just type block list, which is referring to this block list here, which is a list of all the blocks, if you haven't guessed that already. And so we're going to go through this list. If you don't know what this means, just look it up, but well, I'll try and explain it. So this variable is just called block, and it goes through this list, and for each like element in this list, that's equal to this block each time. So then we can just do, for each like instance of the block in this block list, we can just do certain things with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this new new method we've made called detectCollisions. So we're going to type self.detectCollisions, and then we do self.x for the first x, and yeah, self.x, then self.y, then self.width, and then self.height. Then, as you can see, that's all the first rectangles, like coordinates and stuff. And then now we're going to get the block, and you see we've got here block. We can just type block.x, block.y, not comma y, dot y, and then I think I've put in something wrong. Yep, I can see here. You need a dot, not a comma. Block x and block y and block dot width and block dot height. Right, there we go. So that should be right. Just check that. Self.x, self.y, self.width, self.height, block.x, block.y, block.width, block.height. Okay, that's good. Now, if you remember this method, it either returns true for all of these, or it returns false. So we need to actually, to get that, we need to set this all to a little to the variable, and the variable we're going to set it to is this collision variable. So we're just going to do collision equals self.detectCollisions. So what will happen is this method will be carried out, so it will do all that code, and it will either return true, so either that this will be true or it will be false. And this method is going to get called many times because it's going to do for each block, it's going to test if the player is like within is having collision with that certain block in the block list. Hopefully that's all clear now. If it's not, don't worry too much. Just yeah, it should be all right. So it works. That's the main thing. Although yeah, it is good if you understand it. If you don't understand it, just leave a comment. I'll try and help if I even read the comments. But anyway, so now we're going to put if collision equals true. So if this collision variable, if it returned true for any of these, so if there was a collision basically, then we're going to do a number of things. Well, actually, we're first going to test if self.falling is true. Remember to put the two equal signs. If you just put 1, it won't work. So yeah, it won't work. So yeah, remember to put two equal signs because we're not assigning them, we're testing them. If that makes any sense. Right, so first of all, the thing we're going to do, we're going to set falling to false, because now, if we know that there's a collision and it was falling when this collision happened, we can pretty much assume that it's going to be a bottom collision, because it's going to be falling downwards, and so yeah, now it won't be falling anymore because it's hit this block. So now we're going to set self.onGround to true because it's now on the ground. And we're also going to set velocity to 0 because, well, it's not moving anymore. It's just going to be sitting there, so yeah. And yeah, that should be about right. And then we've got this, you see here down here, we're still adding on gravity to velocity, but we only want to do that if it's not on the ground. So we're going to do self.onGround. If self.onGround equals false, then we're going to do that. So that basically means if it's in the air, then we're going to add on the gravity variable to velocity. And then that's just away from the if statement. We're just going to, because if it's on the ground, we don't want to add on the gravity. And now self.y minus equals self.velocity. That just updates the y with the velocity. So that should all be in order now. I'm just trying to think what else we need to do. I think that's everything actually. Let's press F9 to run it. As you can see, it does stop, but it like goes into the block a lot, and that is, I was expecting that to happen. Truthfully, I was expecting that to happen. Yeah, in here we actually need to remember we made these variables. We haven't actually used them or anything yet, but what we're going to do is this is not right. This should be out of the for loop, because if this would yeah, I'm thinking of getting a new IDE really, because I don't really like this one very much. This PyScript IDE, it's a bit, I don't know, I think the auto completion is a bit over the top, because I know what I want to type. I don't need some machine to complete it for me. But anyway, yeah, I forgot to put it in here. If collision equals true, so, and I'm now putting in curly braces. Yeah, when you know a lot of different programming languages, you kind of sometimes get mixed up between them. But yeah, anyway, this is now outside of the loop. Before it was in the loop, and we don't really want it to be in the loop. So now we're going to use these block x variables to store the x and the y variables for this certain block that had the collision, and then we're going to break. Break means we just get out of the loop. We don't bother doing any more collisions. Because, I mean, if there's a collision with another block at the same time, these will change, and we don't really want that to happen. So we're just going to break out as soon as it finds a collision. And yeah, we need to have these so we can store the block x and the block y, the block.x and block.y. Wow, that's a mouthful. So now, yeah, we did that. So in here we can do self.y equals block y, which is this one here, minus self.height. And that will stop it. That will make it go up afterwards. I need to go in that one to run it. Yeah, and as you can see, it stops now. And yeah. But that's going to be about it. I have rambled on quite enough today. So hopefully you do understand it. I'll just go over it quickly once more for your benefit. So yeah, that's just to make sure that the falling variable is all correct and stuff. So if velocity is less than 0, then we set it to true because that means it's going down. And then this is all here is to do with the loop for the collisions. So first of all, we make this variable called collision. We set it to false because at the start there's no collision. And then we got these two variables to store the block x and the block y when we get a collision. And well, if we get a collision, if we don't get a collision, they'll still be 0, 0. But yeah, it doesn't matter. And then we go into the loop. So this takes on the value of each element in this array list even. There are arrays in Python, but barely ever use them. And then we do this method, and if it returns true, then that's set to true. Otherwise, it's going to be false. So if it is true, then we're going to get the x and y coordinates of that certain block that had the collision with, and then we break out of the loop because we don't need to test any more collisions. And then if collision equals true, yeah, so if there was a collision, and if self.falling equals true, so if it's falling down, then we're going to set it to false because we know now that it's on top of a block. It's had a bottom collision with a block. And we're going to set on ground to true as well, just to show that it's on the ground, and set the velocity to 0, and then we set the y because before, if we don't do that, if we comment that out, if we don't do that, it will like stay stuck in the block like that. We need to, because it has so much momentum, its y coordinate isn't correct, so we need that to make sure that that it stays on top of the block and it doesn't go into it like that. Okay, and then we do if it's false, then I mean if we hadn't had a collision, then self.onGround would still be false, and it would move down. That's why it moves down at the start, and then we just we update the y with the self.velocity. So yeah, I hope you understand that. If you don't, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed the stuff, and bye bye.